Okay, so the next people that comes in, I mean, please guide them. I don't want to be stopping the flow of the conversation to guide the latecomers, okay? Please guide them.
We should put a trail of Timbits all the way.
True. Okay, so what we're gonna do today, in our first half, hopefully you have uploaded some questions about bonus 8, which is the patient exercise. So you had the opportunity to practice the patient exercise. What I'll be doing today is I'll be going through it step by step. As I go through, make sure that you have your questions answered. If we have time in the end, I may open a few questions that have been submitted. You can also be posting your own questions as we go along here on Padlet. I'll be checking here and there.
I might have misread, but were we supposed to hand in questions about the bonus or hand in the bonus? Because I handed.
You can explain, Ben?
Yeah, basically he wanted questions, but if you handed in the actual thing, that he's not going to look at it, but it'll still count.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the idea is questions, not really the code. Okay. I won't be checking the questions. Come on, help. Okay, so as I was saying, I think the flow will be interrupted anyway. Let's see. Now, well, see. Okay, you'll figure out now. Okay, so again, if we have time, you can submit. I will have a look at the questions that have been submitted, but throughout, you can just post them here, and I'll be checking questions about this. Again, pay very, very close attention to this, because it will help you a lot in the midterm that will be done in our second half. So again, make good use of this time to write your notes. You know, midterm is open book. So again, you can use Google, you can use whatever resource you have, except your friend beside you. Okay, so any questions before I get started with the demonstration of patient exercise? Anything? No? Okay. Maybe to get to that point in the demonstration, so you see if you're going to be addressed there. But ask, because I can tell you right away if you're going to address that.
My question is this: I think that it's workable with like IEnumerable and iQueryable, and I wondered if you had a preference between IEnumerable and.
We're gonna address that. Yes.
I have a question. Do we need to use component to do some filter thing, like to show depends on the material merit status?
To use a view component,
Yeah.
if you can. You don't. Okay, so here's the thing: if the exercise or the test is not asking for that specifically, then you don't have to.
Oh.
It will be clear what. If you need to use a partial view, I'll say use a partial view. If you need to use a view component, I'll say use a view component. I'll not leave those things implicit anywhere.
Okay.
I'll make it very clear what you need to use there. Okay? If it's part of what I have shown here, I'll make it very clear. Use this, use that, use a layout file, use a CSS file here. I'll make it very clear what to use. If it's a partial view, I'll make it very clear. Use a partial view here, use this there. I'll make it explicit there. I'll not keep it for you to guess that. Okay?
Actually, can you explain more on the infrastructure, that folder? Because I don't think about
The infrastructure?
Yeah.
Well, infrastructure was just the name of a folder that the exercise asked you to do. You could have named that anything else. It's just part of the.
I mean the text helper you designed? Because I just copied the code.
Well, the tag helper, to create a tag helper is very, very involving. Again, if you have specific questions about that, come to me with specific questions. But I can tell you, I'm not going to go through line by line of codes of how to create your own tag helper. That's just too much here. Okay, so again, if you have specific questions, ask me, but 101 about that.
Yeah, I guess the question about the IEnumerable thing was more about the order by, because you can do an order by in an IEnumerable or in an iQueryable. But the example that you used, I think, for the sports score was...
Okay, for that one, I'm going to go with a simpler strategy to implement that, but I'm going to give you a link that will explore more advanced things that you can do, but we're going to get there within the exercise, okay? I'll just move on here, and you're going to get there at some points, okay? Okay, so let's open the exercise and let's read. Let's just go through it. Okay, your website is a registration tool for adding patients to a medical system. Registered patients will be held in a repository. Different ways to do this repository, it's just an in-memory repository. I'll be doing something very simple, very similar to what was done with par invites. I'm going to have just a static repository. I'll not even be using an iRepository or any of that. Again, I'll be keeping this extremely simple for this exercise, okay? Okay, so repository. After registering the patient, display a thank you view stating, patient has been successfully registered as occupation on current date and time. So right here, I know that there will be the need for a thank you view, okay? So the way I see in terms of views for this exercise, I see a view to list, a view to add, a view to give the thank you message. And you could also have a view for the home, for the initial view. Again, I'll leave it optional. You can go straight to the view that shows the form, but I would say home, list, form, and thank you. I would say 4 simple views here, okay? One, the first time that you land, you see the menu navigation with list, with ads, and then if you add, when you click submit, it goes to a thank you page, and it will state patient. So those parts in bold, they are dynamic. So here we should change for the patient name, for the patient's occupation, and for the current date and time that the patient has been registered.
So did you say the homepage or landing page is optional? We can go straight to the form?
You could go straight to the form. Nowhere here I'm asking you to have a home view, so I'll leave it optional, but that's about it. Okay, your site will include navigation for return to the registration page, so you can put that in the main navigation of the site and to the patient list. Patient list will consist of a list of all information about that patient that we collected, all the information. We're going to have all shared elements will be placed in a layout file. We're going to add a single CSS file to our application. Nothing wrong with adding Bootstrap. You can add Bootstrap, but show me that you know how to add your own CSS as well, okay? Okay, again, so because we're using a layout file, all shared elements should be in the layout file. And let's start to go item by item. Make sure that you follow the instructions. There in the job, in the industry, you're going to get sometimes a document that says, this is what you have to implement. So you have to follow the guidelines, the specification, okay? The scope. So we have to start to, to get to know how to read stuff and follow what's being asked to the letter, as much as possible. Okay? So let's start with our application there. Okay? Open Visual Studio. Again, if you want to follow along, you can. There are points that I'll be speeding things up a little bit for the sake of time. But again, feel free to follow through on your own. At the end of the class today, I'll be uploading the code for this exercise, okay? Okay, so Visual Studio here. I'm gonna go File, New Project. And I'm gonna go with ASP.NET Core Web Application. I'm gonna call this Patients. Again, you can put another name. I didn't ask you to add any specific project name. And by the way, I'll be asking questions as we go along, so be ready to, to interact and don't let me just talk through things by myself. Okay, so here, what are 3 things that we need to take care of here, make sure that are correct? So the version should be 2.1, okay. So again, you might see version 3 already, you might see version 2.2. Stick to 2.1 because some lines of code, some things will change a little bit, from one to the other, and I don't want you to get yourselves in a complicated scenario that you're gonna have to adjust your code on the fly right now. So that's the first one, version number. What else? So let's disable HTTPS, okay? Disable that. Again, in your assignments as well, disable that. Because when I download and I try to run and I come across this, it pisses me off that I have to change this by myself and I have to reload the application. And again, that goes 1 point right there. Okay, what else? This usually is already disabled. Empty, so empty templates. Let's start with a brand new template, with a blank template, okay? Confirm there. By the way, this is the time that you should, if you're gonna rely on your workstations, you should check if the project is showing the solution here. Sometimes it shows solution 0 projects. If it's showing 0 project, it is, so find another computer. Find another, just go to, no, you don't need to get another ticket, just go to another one. If you know there is one already that works, maybe you go straight to it if it's not occupied already. But yeah, there are 4 behind there. I'm quite sure that at least one of them will work out.
You mean the box one?
This one here, see, solution patients. If you try on your own and you get 0 project, it means that it's not working well and you should find another workstation. Now, important as well, I'm going to say this, I've said that a few times, but I'm going to say that again. When you create your project and you are opening your project on one of the workstations here, you should first open Visual Studio and then from Visual Studio open your project, because otherwise, sometimes if you go straight to your solution file and double click, it may load the file in a different version of Visual Studio. So again, when you are opening an existing project, I would suggest that open Visual Studio first, and then open your project from within Visual Studio, not double-clicking the solution file. Does it make sense, or it was too fast? Okay, great. We have a blank solution file now. Now what? Let's create the 3 folders. So again, the sequence that I'll be showing here is just my own sequence, what I think makes more sense. But again, nothing wrong if you follow a different sequence, as long as the final result works, okay? So, but again, you don't need to follow this exact order. You can accomplish things in a slightly different order, okay? So let's create the 3 folders. Let's go here to our patients, right-click, and go to Add, New Folder. So we're going to create, again, very important. I saw some people in some exercise or something that we have done. creating those folders with a different name. I mean, it's models, plural, views, controllers, plural. If you don't follow that, the MVC will not be able to find the right elements, okay? So very important to have the exact same naming. So models, gonna go for views and controllers. Great. Okay. Now what? What? Configure. So that's good. So let's do the plumbing. That's what I call the plumbing. Let's do the plumbing of our application. The basic elements that need to be in place to make the application run properly. So, yeah. Yeah. So let's go right away to the configure services, and let's do what here? Services dot add MVC. That's the first element. Again, for our basic application, there are 3 elements. So this is the first one. Then here, what is under configure? Which element can I get rid of? This app run I can just get rid of. And I should replace it with what? App dot. Now, you don't need to remember the whole line, but if you just remember default, well, there is a static file. So we'll jump to that in a second. But let's think about MVC and the routing system first. If you just remember default, you can just type default, and then you're going to see use MVC with default routes. We're not going to be using any complicated routing system here. We're going to be using the default one. That will be enough for us. Okay? And then what? What else? What is the third one that we need to put in place here? What is the use of static files? To use in which folder specifically does it activate? The www roots. Okay, so I'm going to just say app dot. And again, if you just remember static, the rest will come up. So static, and here it goes. Use static files. Okay? Okay, so again, this is the basic plumbing of our application here. Let's have a look at the specifications here. So we are done with the first one here. Second one, well, it's talking about the patient registration view. For us to get to the registration, let's work backwards a little bit. So what is the first element that I need to have in place to a model? So let's take care of having the models here. So this model, I'm just going to say the field name, you're going to give me the type. Patient name, age, address, string, occupation, string, who has insurance, Boolean, had previous operation, Boolean, marital status. Again, different options here. I'll give 3 options. I'll tell you the least desired and the most desired, and the one in the middle, which is the one that I'll be picking. So the least desired it's a string field. So it's least desired because here's the thing. If you have a field that has a discrete number of options, a well-established, well-known number of potential options, there's no reason why you need to store a string. String occupies way more memory than a number, okay? So it's not very effective. It's not very, it doesn't have the best performance, okay? Or the best storage performance as well. We're not storing this in the database, we're storing in memory, but let's use what is most efficient. Let's use what the industry uses out there. In a case like this, industry out there will not be using a string at all. I mean, never. They will never be doing that. So this this first option, let's scrape that out. Let's not use a string here. Let's not store married as a string, single as a string. Let's not do that. It could work, it would work, but it's not the correct approach, okay? So with that done, let's go with the other extreme. Great, it could be an enum. That would be the preferred option here, to be quite honest. And to make this dynamic, come up with an enum structure, that's great. It works. I will go with something in the middle here. Something in the middle is just a simple mapping that says 1 for married, 2 for single, 3 for divorced, 4 for widowed. If you do with an enumeration, that's great, that's fine. It will be correct as well. If you do with numbers, that's great, that's fine. If you do as a string, that's not great, that's not fine. Okay? I'll give you a link that will explore how you can do this drop-down dynamic with enum and be very sophisticated. We're not going to do something very sophisticated here. We're going to do something a little bit more towards the simple side of things, okay? But as we get implementing this in our view, I'll give you a link so you can get a better idea of how to do the most awesome drop-down with enums for those options here, okay? Great, so let's put together our model there. So, patient model will be stored in which folder?
In models.
Models, okay. So now, let's add a class. How should we call this class? Patient. So, we are dealing here with one patient, okay? This is not patients. This is not students. This is not cars. This is one car, students, patients, faculty. This is not plural, okay? This is not add car, add patient, add student. This is not add. I mean, don't give me the name of an action here. We're not talking about actions here. We're talking about the objects. Animal, cat, person, faculty, singular as well, okay? So patient. And this, actually, let me close this. And this is a very simple class. I'm just gonna start and put a few properties here. So our first one will be a string. It will be what? Okay, you know what? For the sake of time, I'm going to get okay, so name, string, age, integer. If you come up with slight name variations here, that's fine as well. Try to keep this as those are public, first letter capital. Try to keep this somewhat like that. Age integer, address string, occupation string, has insurance boolean, had previous operation boolean. Marital status, I'm going to keep it as integer. Again, if you go with an enum, that's great, that's fine. Registration date, that's what we are covering right here. Client create the patient model reflecting the collected information and the date and time the patient was registered, okay? This part here, date and time the patient was registered, has the different ways to get implemented. First is that we have to have a property. I'm just calling this property registration date. Now, the type is date and time, which means that I'm storing at the same time the date and the time that the patient has been created, okay? Now, I'm going to show you my preferred approach here to set the date and time for this property. I'm going to just going to say this is equals to date time And date time has a method called, sorry, not a method, a property called now. Now returns a date and time that gets the current date and time of the server, of the system. In our case, because we're running this locally, it's getting your local date and time of your computers there, okay? Again, there are different ways that you could have set this. You could have set this in your controller when you are creating the new patients. You could have set this in the constructor of the patient's class, okay? Different places, different ways. Nothing wrong with doing one way or another, as long as you are really getting the current date and time that the patient has been created, okay? Again, this is a very common type of properties. If you are working out there, most of the time we need to record the user ID who's creating this patient, the date and time, the user who's modifying the records, to keep history, to keep track of things, of who did what with that records, for a compliance standpoint, for a security standpoint. Anyway, any questions here? Okay, great. So we have our model. Let's keep reading here, and let's see. Okay, we have taken care of the model. How about? Yeah, let's go with the view. Let's do the view here. So we have done the model. Let's jump to the view, but before the view, what is it that calls the view? The controller calls the view. Okay, so let's take care of creating our controller. Let's take care of creating that already. So we are using, if you see our startup, we are using default routes. When we use default routes, what is the name of our controller, our default controller? Home controller, okay? So under controllers, I'm going to right click, add class home controller. Make sure that you keep the keyword controller at the very end, okay? It has to inherit from controller. And controller, to use controller, we need to have the namespace added to the file, to our code. So here's the namespace. So home is the default controller. What is the default action? Index. Okay, so let's create our index here. Public. So what I'm trying to say is that one thing pulls the other one. You can, if you see, you don't have to necessarily memorize things. If you have an understanding of how the different pieces fit together, you just ask yourself, but for this, what should I have already? And what should I have already? If you keep asking this, you're gonna go back to, oh, now I need a controller, now I need to have the default action as well. Default action is called, and we're gonna just use a view result here to return a view result. It's called index. Now, if I return a view, if I do that, what is the name of the view that I need to create now? I need to create an index view. That's the reason why in an example like this, I don't really like to add the form in the index because it's not very natural, obvious that, oh, the form is inside the index. I would rather have another view that says register, registration, add patient, or something like that, you know. So I'm going to keep index very simple with no dynamic information there, but let's go here. So what's next? What is exactly the next step here? Before that, before we are able to create the view, come on. I need to create something before I'm able to create the view right now. No. Come on, where am I going to create the index view? Where? In the home folder. Okay, so again, we have to add a new folder. It has to match the name of the controller without the term controller. Okay, so home. Under home, then that's where I'm going to create it. So ads, I'm going to go with new item. It's the same thing if you go to view. However, something that I've noticed is that, and I think I finally understand the reason. If you go to view, this option here, and your code is not compiling, if there's an error in your code, I think that this won't work, will not work, okay? So that's the reason why I usually go adds, new item. Again, if you are able to go via view, that's fine. However, in the end, you're going to have to delete everything that is there anyway. You're going to have to get a blank file. So it doesn't matter if you go here or if you go there. You're going to find yourself staring at a blank file either way. So I'll go with new item. And then web, not razor page, very important here. I made this mistake a few times already as well. You're going to have a problem if you select razor page. It's not razor page. We don't use razor page here in this course at all. Razor view. Okay? I'm going to keep the index as the name. I'm going to add. And I'm just going to select this and start from scratch. Again, it's just a blank file that we're going to be starting out. Now, let's think about this for a second here. Are we going to have any, I guess, dynamic information in our view? In our index here. Index, we're just going to have some static HTML there. Maybe the navigation, okay? But again, just static HTML. So my point is that, do we need to have a model here for this view? Do we need to link to a model?
No.
Not index. I don't think that we need that for index because we're not going to be adding dynamic information at all here, okay? So let's leave it like that. I'm just going to add a few lines of HTML just to describe, hey, welcome to the system. You're going to be able to add patients, to view patients, okay? So I'm just going to put a few lines of HTML here. Okay, so that's it. Again, I'm not saying that you have to copy this exactly. You can do your welcome message the way you want. That's all good. That's all fine. We're gonna get there in a second. So at this point, do you think that we would be able to run and see this? Let's see if are we missing anything here. So what are we missing? .html? What do you mean by that? Oh, doc HTML. Oh, okay. That's fine for now. That's fine for now. We're going to be addressing that in a second. But if I try to run, will I be able to run? That's the question. I think so too. So it's good if, as you go along, don't wait too much before you try to run your application, because then you can catch problems early on before you do a lot of stuff. So do a little bit, try to run, do a little bit, try to run, so you know that, hey, I just did this, and it's wrong, so let me revisit that, okay? So let's give it a try. Okay, so it's running. Our index is loading. Great, awesome. Let's keep moving forward here. So, to get to your point, we are missing the basic elements of a good, a well-formatted, a well-formed web page, okay? Now, the assignment here is asking to use a layout file. So how about we create that? How about we put that in place? To use a layout file, where should we put that? In a shared folder which is under views. So let's go to views, add, new folder, shared, and then under that folder, we're going to go to add, new item, and then ASP.NET script, .NET, Razor layout. Now, here's the name, underscore layout. I can keep that. You can rename this as long as you keep the underscore at the very beginning. Keep the term layout, so we know that this is a layout file. This is not a regular view. You can say basic layout, admin layout, whatever you want to say. You can even keep it as is, just underscore layout. That's what I'm going to do here. Just going to keep that. Okay, so here's what we have, our basic HTML structure. Doc type, the HTML tag, heads, body. Great. We have our render body, which is where the views, they get loaded inside. Okay? Okay, so let's go back to our index here. So in our index, how do I say that I want this view to use that layout? So we can say, we can put a code block here that says what? Layout equals to underscore. So again, the name here without the extension. So underscore layout. Now, because all of our views will use the same layout, this is shared across the different views. So how about we make this a little bit more efficient? How could we do that? We could have a view we start, okay? So view start is placed where? Under views directly. So let's go there. Let's add a new item. Let's add this time around a Razor view start. I'm going to keep the same name, view start. Again, view start is supposed to include common blocks of code, okay? Not imports, not layout elements, but common coding elements, like the layout. So I've added in, again, smart enough to know that, hey, maybe you want to use the layout. So we do, so we don't have to add this layout here in the index anymore. However, if we have a look at our layout file, we also have our viewbag.title, which is expecting the title of our page of our view. So how about we use that code block to initialize this title for each view. So in our index, I could say something like this, viewbag.title equals to, and I can say index, this is the home page. Okay, great, so we have our layout in place. Questions?
So since we are using that layout, so when we create a view, can we keep that checkbox and using the layout?
If you keep that checkbox, it will add a layout line in the view. You don't need that anymore because we are using the view start. So because of that, we don't need to set the layout for our next views because we are already doing this in this shared place. Okay? Okay, so let's think here. We have our layout file in place. How about we take care of this CSS here? Again, what I'm looking for there is a very simple CSS file. It may have just one definition. I just want to make sure that you know how to add your own CSS. Okay? So, which folder? So we're going to go to www.root. Then what? Let's create a folder called CSS. Again, let's keep lib for third-party libraries that we don't modify. And let's have our own CSS folder, our own images folder, okay? Our own JS folder if we need to. We don't need for this exercise here. Okay. Question? Oh.
We don't need to do like the whole libman JSON.
I will do that if we have time, but for this exercise it was not enough. It's not necessary. I'll just do that to make it a few things a little bit prettier, a little bit nicer.
Can we do that on the test?
Yes. As long as you also do your own CSS here. Even if it's one file with one definition there, but I want to make sure that you know how to add that to the application, okay? Inside our CSS, you're going to create a new, again, I'm going to go with new item. I'm going to go for content here, in style sheets. Again, in the end, it will be a blank style sheet that you will be able to make modifications. You can keep this name. I will change it for styles. Nothing wrong with keeping the same name, that's fine. I'm just going to name it as styles. Here we have the file. I'm going to get rid of this definition. I'm not going to. For now, let's keep it blank. We're going to use it in a second. Okay, so we have our styles. Where are we going to make a reference to it? Where are we making a reference to these styles? In the common layout. Okay, because we're going to be using the CSS throughout our views to make our views consistent. Let's use the layout, because layout, again, it's used throughout our views. So we're going to go link rel equals to style sheet related to. So we're going to use href here, the href property, to make a reference to our CSS. So CSS styles, I would rather, just in case, get rid of this tilde. Sometimes I've seen issues there. And then we close things up. That's it. That's how we add the reference to our style. And with that, we pretty much covered this part here. Again, it's still empty, but we're gonna find some use for that in a second. Questions? Yep.
Yeah, okay, so whenever you link the style, I noticed that you just changed it to a relative path, right?
Yep. Well, actually,
Or is that absolute?
This first slash here, it goes all the way to the root of the site. It goes all the way back. If I would do this, then this would be a relative path, but this is an absolute path.
So what's the difference between doing tilde slash and this?
Actually, to be quite honest, I don't recall what is the tilde for. I'm not really sure about the tilde. I'll figure it out. I'll sort it out. Okay. So that's the reason why
I think it just means go to the folder that's above.
And then
When
go
you
into
call-
CSS.
It's a placeholder.
yeah.
You don't have to name the folder that's above, but it says go to the next.
It might be. And again, I would be concerned if it's just the above one. If we are 3 levels down, the above one is not the correct one.
So you might as well just put
So I might as well just do this because this is an absolute path. There will be it doesn't matter how deep you are, it will always go to the root of the site to find this folder. Okay? Okay, so let's see. Let's get moving here. So we have not done the form yet, but we're gonna get there. Let's just finish a few things here. How about we have our navigation? How about we define already? We take care of this layout completely, and we define our navigation. Our navigation, the way I would envision here, I would have a home, I would have a list, and I would have an ads. Okay? If you don't have the home, as I said, you could just have list and add. That's fine. I'm not asking explicitly for an index here with a blank home, but I'm going to just lay it out the way I see that makes more sense. So I'm going to use an A link here. Which property am I going to use to make a reference to the different actions? So ASP-action, the one that will point to home should call which action? Index. And then I'm going to say home. Now, there's something not that quite right here. What is the problem here? That's correct. Why should I have a view imports? To do what? To have a tag helper so it can recognize what ASP-action is and can make the appropriate adjustments to make it point to the index action, okay? So, where are we gonna store our view imports? In views, and that's it. So right click, add, new item, ASP.NET, Razor view imports, keep the same name, confirm, and you are ready to put that tag helper line. Very long. I don't recall, I don't know. I just have to have a reference on where to copy that from using the That's it. So again, directive, tag helper, and then all of this library here, of this assembly. Okay. And now if we go back to our index, you see we have this in bold purple, which means that, hey, it's recognized. Now, what I see a lot happening is creating this in the wrong folder. Okay? Creating this in the wrong folder. Okay? The view imports. View imports is under views, not under shared. So again, have a look, do a memory, photograph of where those things are located here to make sure that you do that in your test as well. If you put things in different locations, things will not work that well, okay? Okay, great, so we have imports, and then we have the layouts, and then we have our navigation. So let's finish our navigation. So I'm gonna say pipe here just to make some space. I'm gonna put the next one. I'm gonna say ASP action. I'm gonna point this to, let's say to the list, okay? I'm gonna just call, we don't have the action yet, but I'm just gonna call this action. I'm gonna call list. I'm gonna close it here, and I'm gonna say patient list. And I'm gonna put the third and last one. I'm gonna say ASP-action equals to, it can be add patient, it can be register, registration. As I've done this before with register, I'm just gonna keep the same name here, but again, it could be another name, as long as it makes some sense, okay? Register, okay. And I'm gonna say add patient. Okay, so I have the 3 links. Just gonna break this in different lines to make it easier to visualize. Okay. Okay. Okay, again, questions? Okay, so now we are ready to move to finally start taking care of this here, okay? Before we do that, let's go for a 5 minutes break. Once we come back, we reconnect with this. What is that? And team bits, yes, finish that, please.
I like this new mobile one.
What is that?
I got 2 interviews.
Oh, that's great. Congratulations. Whoa. Look at that. You see?
Thank you, sir.
What's up?
I just want to know where's my seat.
00884. So 8 is the last row, 4 is the very last one. If it's not working, find another one, okay? Okay, let's get going so we can get our test at the right time, okay? Okay, so we have our layout, our layout done. Now, to move forward, let's get our form done. Let's start to get our form done here. Okay. In that sense, we're gonna have to create the register action. Okay. So let's go back to our controller. Let's add first the get of our action here. So we're gonna say public view results. We're gonna return a view register. We're gonna say return view. And now, because we are not passing over any view name, the view has to match register. So we're gonna create our register view. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go to our views home, add, new item, and then create a razor view. I'm gonna call this register. And let's start this from scratch. Okay, so this will be the form that will handle the input of a new patient. So are we going to be using a model here? Yep. Linking to what? To a patient. Okay? So let's say we're going to say at model patient. Right? What is wrong?
It was in our view.
Well, let's go to a very basic element that is wrong there. What is wrong here? The second character is wrong here. The second character. The second character, the second, lowercase m here. Okay, directive is lowercase. Now, okay, great. But we have a problem here. Again, pay attention to this detail because I see a lot of you also missing out what's going on here. What's the problem here?
No, it's because we're not using the full namespace.
So we have two options here. What would be the first option?
It was use the full namespace.
We could put the entire namespace. You could say something like patients, which is the name of the project, patients, models, patients. Yes, we could do this. Patients. Okay, now it's done. Patients. Okay, so that will be one, the first one. Now there's a more efficient approach. What would be it? We could go to the view imports and you could say what here? We can say at using patients dot models, and then we can go back and we can get rid of this part here, and now all views will be aware of what's inside this models folder. Great. Now what? How about we take care of the same thing that we took care of the layout, the title?
Is it on the view start or the view import?
View import. So the import is where we add tag helpers, is where we add namespaces. That's in the underscore of view imports. Okay? Now, let's take care of the same title in the view bag that we did for the index. Let's do that to our registration as well, to our register. So we're going to say view bag, and we're going to call this add patient, let's say. Okay. Great. Now what? Let's open our form. Let's do something very simple here. Let's open our form tag. It will be pointing to an action. Okay? Question?
No, is this more later on if you're going to be using HTTP get and HTTP post? If you use ASP abstraction, that might actually cause an issue.
If we don't use HTTP,
If you don't use HTTP get and HTTP post, if you use ASP-action,
but we will be using HTTP get and post in a second.
interestingly enough, sometimes I run into an issue if I use ASP-action. But whenever I press the submit button, without using ASP-action, because I already have the HTTP post resting above one of my actions, it would automatically go to the correct one. Sometimes using ASP-action causes an issue for me.
So if you don't, yeah, okay. Let's go through it, and if you see where it's failing, let me know. Let's talk through it. Okay. So I'm going to specify the action that we're going to be using. Again, so far in our controller, we just have this action here, which is handling both gets and posts. But later, we're just going to have this one handling the gets, and we're going to have a second one handling the posts. Okay? So I'm going to say that this is register. Again, we have not implemented this yet, but we will. And we're going to say that the method is a post. Did you make sure that you add post as well here? Yep. Okay. Now, with that in place, I'm just going to start to add inputs for the different properties. Okay, so in our model, tell me what kind of control are we going to use for each one. So for name, just an input text, age, input, yeah. So when we link to the input, there will be some validation that will be done automatically because this is a number. So it takes care of that for us already. So we're going to have input here, input text, checkbox here for a Boolean, check. If it's checked, true. If it's unchecked, false. Same thing here. Marital status, a select, so we're going to have a drop down, okay? And registration date, we don't need to ask that. It will get done behind the scenes, okay? We don't need to ask the user to enter that. Okay, so you can handle this, the layout, in different ways. You can do this with divs, you can do this with a table, you can use labels. I'll leave it up to you. I'll not be too concerned about how it looks like. It's more about, is it storing the information? Storing in memory the information? Yes or no? It's all about that. I have chosen here to do, to put in a table layout, but let's just put one thing here initially, just to give an example. So we're gonna say that this is an input. What is the property that we link to the ASP-4? And then we have to list, we have to call the property name, okay? So in the case of patients, the name is name, so we're going to say name. Okay, so because of the model binding, because this view is bounded to this model patient, this name gets recognized. If I try to do something like first name, let's wait and see. See, it shows me that this is wrong because there is no such property inside patient, okay? So I'm going to get rid of that. Now, just to help me out a little bit here, I'm going to copy this table that I put together. So I'm going to just have, again, different ways to put this together. I'm just saying the first column of this table has patient name, The second one has the actual control, and I'm going to do this for each and every property. So I'm just going to have age, address, occupation, okay, so just put one by one. Patient, age, address, inputs, the different inputs, occupation, the input as well. Now, the checkboxes. So for the checkbox, actually, we don't even have to have this. We don't need to have type checkbox because tag helper is smart enough to know that, hey, what is the type of has insurance? Oh, it's a Boolean? If it's a Boolean, I better make this a checkbox. Oh, this is a Boolean as well? I better make this a checkbox. So you don't even need to put that you want a checkbox here. So I'm just going to use that as well. So again, has insurance, had previous operation, and then I put the label afterwards. So we have the checkbox, and then what it means after that. And last but not least, let's see here. Table is missing the closing. Let's close this table there. But we need to have our last property, which is merit status. As I said, I'm going to keep this one very simple, but let me see if I have that easily here. Nope, I don't have that right away. In any case, I will post on Padlet a link that will show details on how you can potentially populate this from an enumeration, from an enum, how to make this dynamic. I'm not going to go through all of that within this exercise. Again, if you want to explore this link that I'll be providing, feel free. It will show you plenty of options on how to build this dynamically. Okay, so it's not as static as it is here, but hey, this is enough for us to cover this exercise. Okay, so we have the option and the value as numbers. We're not going to be doing validation either here, but I put the first one as an empty slot, and then we have all the other ones. Okay. Again, any questions? Sure.
Okay, so when you're using a select statement, in a situation like this, it would look pretty appropriate to use an enumeration, like an enum.
Yes.
How can you implement using an enum in this without having any errors?
Okay, that's what we have a bit of a discussion about that in the beginning of the class. So that's why I'm saying that I'm going to share this link that will show you options on how to do that with enumeration without making it static like this, okay? So you can have an option that will make this more dynamic, more flexible, I would say. But for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to keep things very simple here, okay? Again, I thought that I would have this handy, but I don't. So once, a little bit down the road today, I'll share this link here that will show you more options on how to make this more dynamic. Okay, now what? What are we missing in our form? We're missing the submit. So let's do that. Let's do that right here. So you're going to use a button. Type of the button will be a submit type. And you're going to say save. Okay, so someone from another section asked the question, how can I specify which action will be triggered when we click the button? Because we're not specifying that here. How are we specifying that? So the form itself. So we go up here, and you're going to see that it's posting to this action. Okay. So a submit button will submit information. Will submit the form that it belongs to. Okay. So that's dangerous.
So that's what confused me earlier. Is that why we have the HTTP get and post on the same action?
Well, actually, we're gonna create a separate action here. So when we go back here, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do this next. We're gonna create a separate action to handle the post.
So it's the same view.
It's the same view. Yes. The first one is get
So that's
when loads.
information.
No, when we open the form.
Okay.
The get happens when we open the form. When we click the link that says add new patients, that's the get. When we submit the button, that's the post action. We are posting information back to the server. Okay? We're gonna do, well, before we do that, we're gonna create a cancel option here as well that will just return to the home page. Just for the sake of it. Let's create a link here, a simple link with ASP-action. If I need to go back to the home page, the home view, which action should be here? Index. And then I'm going to say cancel. Okay, great. Now it comes. Let's handle the post action for register. Let's go back to our controller. And let's create another action here, but this time it will handle the post action. So I don't have to, but I'm gonna just to make it very explicit here, I'm gonna say that this first one will only handle HTTP get, and I'm gonna say that the second one will only handle HTTP post. And we're gonna say public. Ideally, this would return an I action result because if we were doing validation and we could potentially return to the same view, we could return a redirect to another view, but again, with the intention to make this as simple as possible, I'm just going to keep as a regular view result, and I'm going to call this register. Register as well. Now, well, it's complaining here, it's complaining about several things. One is that it has the same name as this one, the same signature, the same parameters. Now, what are we gonna change here? So we're gonna add an object of which type here as a parameter? Patient, because here's the thing. Our form is bounded to a patient. When we click the submit button, it creates a patient for us. And it maps back all properties back to what was input, what was placed there. So it gives back to us a patient here. Patient, patient, patient. Now, it's just saying that the namespace is not available, so I'm going to put the namespace there, okay, at the top. So here's the namespace. Great, so we have a patient here. Now what?
We want a repository for the patient.
So now we have to store this. We have to store this patient somewhere. So let's take care of creating our very basic and simple repository. Again, we're going to use, as I mentioned before, we're going to use a very simple repository here, an in-memory repository. It will be so simple that I'm not even going to use an I repository, all that jazz. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use something as simple as you saw in the PAR invites. The PAR invites at the very beginning, we're going to be fine with that for now. Okay, so I can just say under models, I can create our repository there. And it will be so simple that it will actually be just a static class. I'm not even going to need to instantiate. So I'm going to call this repository. And again, for the sake of keeping things Very simple and straightforward. I'm going to say that this class is a static class. I'm not going to even need to instantiate an object of this type here. So I'm just going to say static. This would be okay for your assignment 2. For assignment 3, we have to make things database driven, but even for assignment 2, this would be okay as well. Anyway, we're going to be storing this information somewhere. So in memory, what would be the natural choice of structure to store the patients? In a list, okay? But keep in mind that in object-oriented programming, we keep data private and we expose data via public properties. We're going to keep our list private here. So we're going to say private I'm going to say list of patients. I'm going to call this patients. I'm going to go with lowercase to signal that this is a private property. So patients. And I'm going to initialize it right away. I'm going to say equals to new list of patients. Okay? So we have a private. What is the problem here? Oh, yes. So because this is a static class can only have static members. So I'm going to have to say private static patients. And now, let's expose that. Let's expose our patients via a public property. Okay, so let's do something like a public. Let's call this public. Now, it's static. That's fine. Now, we have been using another structure, or actually an interface, to identify lists as well. So we have to store in a concrete list in memory, but we can expose this via an I enumerable. Okay, so you can say I enumerable of patient. And here we can write a get. I think that we could also do a lambda. Is that lambda here that we can just say patients? I think it is. What am I missing here? Of course, the name, of course. Patients. And then, yes, that's it. So this is an option to create a read-only property. You could also expand this and create a get, like what I did here in my... You can do this as well. This is the same as this. But here we are using the lambda syntax, okay? Okay, so we have our list, we have our public property, read-only property. Now, we just need to be able to do what with this list? Which action are we able to perform with this list? Just add. So I'm going to just say public. It can be add patients, just adds. I'm just going to go with add here. Public, yes, static. Void, because this will not return anything. Adds, and I'm going to add a patient. And I'm going to call it patient. Patient. Yep.
Could you do your order by in the property? Because it wants it by name. Could you have done it?
I would not do that. No, I would not say so, because this is just about, the repository is about storage. It doesn't care how we're gonna, and ordering is not even presenting yet, but it doesn't care how you're gonna use it. So it would work. It would give you the same end result, but I would leave this kind of decision for the controller to make. For the
What I was
Yeah.
I know which one is better.
So here we give the information that's required, but how it's presented, two, filtered, and I will include ordered as well. Leave that decision, presentation for the view, and filtering and ordering, leave it for the controller to decide that, okay? And then we're gonna just call what? We're gonna have a private here, so patients dot add. And we're gonna add this patient here. That's it. So we have list, we have a public property, we have the method that we're going to be adding new patients, and then we can go back to our controller, and here we can say what? Repository dot add. We're going to add the patient. Yep. And then let's have a look at the exercise here. It says, after registering a patient, display a thank you view stating, patient has been successfully registered as occupation on current date and time. So we're going to create our thank you view. Okay? So we're going to redirect here. We're going to say something like this, return view. But now, because our view does not have the same name as the action, we're going to have to explicitly call the name of our view. In our case here, let's say that we're going to create a view called thank you. And let's leave this for now. We're going to revisit this in a second. So let's take care of creating this view. Okay? So we're going to go to our home, add, new item. We're going to go to web. We're going to go to Razor View. And the name will be thank you. We're going to confirm. Okay, so our thank you, because we need to replace dynamic information here, patient, occupation, current date and time. We need to send a model, so we need to set the model here. So we need to send a patient here. So again, at model, we can just say patient. Great, so our thank you will be expecting a model of type patient. And let's put this message here. Actually, before we do that, let's just set the title as usual. So this will be our thank you. And here's the message. Now, the parts in bold, patient, occupation, and current date and time will be dynamic. So we're going to do something like this. At what? At name? Is that? At model dot name, and then occupation at model dot occupation, and then the last one at model dot date, registration date. Let's put this inside a header just to make it a little bit more prominent. Okay, great. So we have the thank you. Let's revisit the controller. What else do we have to do here when we call view? we have to send a patient here. This patient becomes a model. So I'm going to say, thank you, comma, patient. Sorry. So we are sending the recently created patient back to thank you so we can get its properties. And I think that, let's see, that we should be able to run this and be able to add. Okay, so let's have a look at our add patient. Let's see here. Okay, see, because this is an integer, it gives me, I cannot type a name here. I have to type only numbers. So it does some validation for us. Check boxes here. Again, very simple. And if I click on save, I should see John Smith has been successfully registered as a coder on this date and time. Okay? Now, we are left with our patient list. Before we get to that, there is something here that I'm missing in the layout. I just realized that. If you have a look at the layout, I would like you to add an image as well. Okay? Just again, to show me that you know how to add an image. So let's address that. In our www root, which folder should I create here? So let's create, actually I will have to stop this. I'm going to create a folder called images. I'm going to open that folder so I can add an image that I have already created. Again, you can just use any image that you can find. I'm going to use this one here. Okay, and in our, where am I going to add this image? To. So the image is already here, but where am I going to make a reference to it? In the layout. So I'm going to go back to our layout. I'm going to just put at the very top here, I'm going to say img src of source equals to image patient. And again, there's the tilde thing as well. I think that if you keep, it won't be a problem. Let's have a look here. Okay, but the image is quite big. So how about we address the signs in our CSS? How about we use, for the first time, our CSS? So I'm going to create a class in our CSS called logo. So I'm going to say .logo. And I'm just going to work on the width of our image there. I'm going to say 80 pixels. And I'm going to go back to the layout, and I'm going to say class equals to logo. So I'm just going to say that. Very important, when you are, and maybe this will not happen here, I think, but let's see. I'm just going to refresh here. Let's see. See, the size didn't change. Can anyone tell me why? What is that? It's cached. So again, when CSS are very easily cached, so you may think, okay, what is happening here? Well, if you do a hard refresh in your browser, if you are using Chrome, you can press Ctrl R. So I'm going to press Ctrl R right now. It will reload, but it will clear the site cache. So look at this, Ctrl R, and it doesn't change. Okay, so maybe press again in another time. Okay, so let's close the browser. Yeah, so again, maybe you're going to have to delete to clear the cache of the browser manually. Let's give it a try. Let's run it again and see if we get it. Not yet. Okay,
There's another way.
go ahead
You can right-click view source.
to refresh that, okay?
Yeah, and then you just go click on your CSS. No, your CSS.
Oh, CSS, yeah.
Refresh the page.
Okay,
Okay, now try doing
go
that.
back.
In theory, yeah.
Uh-huh, voila. Different ways to solve the mystery. Yes?
Another way. So if you open your new studio and you can press F12 and then F1 and there is a selection in the instrument and there is option to disable the cache.
Oh, oh, good. So where is that? F12, you mean? Where is that again? Oh, run the application. Oh, I see, I see. It's in the browser, not in Visual Studio. Okay, so again, different ways to solve. You could also go and clear the entire cache, but the one you said, F12, sorry, Control F12 here, and then you can go to network, or F1. Okay, so Control, let me see here, F1, okay. Disable cache here. Okay, perfect. Again, I'm not sure if by doing so, you're going to be disabling cache for every browser for every site that you use. You might be doing that as well. So, but again, another way, okay? Different ways to solve the same issue here. Okay, so great, we are done with the image. Let's just get moving so we can get our patient list done as well. So how about now we create our last action here, the list action, okay? So let's close a few things here. Too many things open. Okay, so let's go back to our controller and address our list action. So let's go here to public, view results. Then let's call our list. Let's return a view here. A view called list. Oh, sorry, I don't need to do that because it's the default name. Let's keep it for now like this. Now I'm gonna have to create this view. Okay? Actually, let's address this already. So what is it that we're gonna be sending to this view? To list all patients. We need to send something in our repository. We need to send all patients. Okay? We're gonna get there in a second. We're gonna get there in a second. Let's just do that. Then let's create now our view, our list view. So let's go to home. Let's add a new item. Razor view. I'm gonna call this list. I'm gonna say add. And here, what is the model that we're going to be attaching to this list? What is the model? So you're gonna add an IEnumerable of patients. The same thing as we did with the other ones. We're gonna add the title bar or the title. We're gonna say list of patients. Now what? Now let's present this in a table format, okay? So how are we gonna read the elements of this IEnumerable here? We're gonna go over for each, okay? Before we start our loop, let's add the header of our table here. So let's say table, and then let's put the first line, the first row, tr, and then we can say td. So it can be the name, and it goes on and on. So again, we're gonna add a header for each one of the properties. So I'm gonna just get this ready-made here. Now I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna share so you can have access to this as well. I'm gonna share this entire file with you as well via Padlet. A little bit too much. Okay, so we have, again, if you don't want to copy this right now, I'm gonna share on Padlet this entire code after I'm done here with this code. So this is the header. Now we're gonna go in a loop. We're gonna go for each. We're gonna open a for each structure here, so for each. For each what? For each patient, or I could say var as well, but for each patient P in what? In model. Model is our list. And then we're gonna go one by one. We're gonna just say tr for the line. And you're gonna say td for the column. And then this will be at p dot name, and we're going to do that for each and every property. So we're going to just do this. So we have age here. Is that age? Yes. Address, occupation, we're going to do the same thing for the other ones as well, but we're going to make a minor modification to the has insurance and has had previous operation. In marital status, we're going to also do a minor change there, but let's see here. Marital status and date. And I'm going to get rid of this one here. Okay, so we should be able to see some data here. Let's give this a try. Okay, so let's try to add a patient here. So okay, so the name, the message, let's have a look at patient list. Great, so we have that. Now, let's do 3 changes here. Has insurance, had previous operation. Let's, instead of showing true and false, because it does not make too much sense for an end user to see true or false, let's make it yes or no. To make that simple change, we can go back to our view. And again, something like this, it's about presentation. So I can do that pretty much here from our view. So I can just create an expression here. And I can do an if statement, but I can do one line, a one-liner here. How do I do this in one line? Question mark. So if this is true, show, oops, I think I broke this a little bit here. Yep. So if this is true, set it to yes, else, no, and then I'm going to close this. Very important to open parentheses and close it, okay? If you don't use that, it will not work. The same thing we're going to do in the next one, question mark, so yes and no. And then, actually, let's just refresh this. Oops, I think I broke something here. Who can tell me what I broke here? Oh, I see, yes. Okay, perfect. So we have yes, and then merit status is true. Let's use what to adjust, to fix, or to better present merit status here. Let's use a switch statement. So let's go with a switch statement. And then we're going to say, we're going to open curly braces here. We're going to say case 1. Then I can say at column, I can say merit. But I also have to add the break here. So let's do some indentation here. I have to do this for each situation. So we have 4. This will be 2. This will be 3 and 4. I'm going to have here single, forced, riddled. And now, if we refresh, we are okay here. Again, I'll share this code in a second with you. Let's have a look at what we have to accomplish here. Let's see if we did that. So first one is done. Second one, the form is done. Third one, create patient model reflecting with date and time. It's fine, it's done. We also have the date and time here, as you can see. Create a repository, we did that. Create a patient list view to display the list, storing the repository, including the date and time, that's great. Now look at this. The list view must display the list of patients in alphabetic order of patient name. So again, very important that you refer back to the assignment or to the tests to make sure that I do this as specified. Again, very important, as specified, okay? So we have to address this. Where are you going to address this order here? Let's go to our controller. We have to stop. We have to go to our controller. And then what? Do what here? We have to use the order method. Order by. Then we have to say, using lambda here, P for patients, goes to such as p.name. If I want to order by name, I can do that. If I want to order by age, I would replace this with .age. Okay? Okay. I think that we are done. Let's have a look here. Create a controller to support the actions. We did that. Create a CSS file. We did that. Handle navigation, CSS reference the layout. We did that. Best practices here. We kept only the required files, nothing more, nothing less. We placed things in the appropriate folders. I think that we used a consistent and logical naming. And we did apply CSS, so we are good here. Okay. Again, I could go on and add Bootstrap as well. However, for the sake of time, we just have 5 minutes to touch base and see if there is any questions that you may want to ask, either for this exercise, for the assignment, or for the test.
Okay. In terms of routing towards a specific view for, let's say, details, what is the preferred method of routing? URL.action, HTML.action link, or ASP-route?
Okay, so let me process that. So ask again in a slower pace.
If you want to go view details about one specific item within a
Oh, got it. So let's say in the assignment, you click in a recipe.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
What is your preferred method?
So-
ASP-route, URL.action, or HTML.action link?
Anyone is fine. The one thing that is not fine, I can tell you what is not. It's not fine to use a forum. Because I saw some assignments, not necessarily from this class, because I didn't I didn't review yours as well. But I saw some people using a form tag to redirect to the recipe. Well, form tags, form is used to submit information. If we just want to get information, we use a simple link. Forms are supposed to be, because you as a user, you are sending information back to the server. You are not just requests. So I can tell you this, it's not okay to use a form. But if you use ASP action, whatever, or HTML, again, there are different mechanisms available to you to build the link. None of them are wrong. As long as it's pointing to the correct view, it's loading the correct recipe, I'm fine with any one of them. Okay? Anything else?
The assignment, the last one, clicking an item should load the view.
For the assignment,
Yeah, for the last item,
last item in the assignment.
just click an item, it will load the view.
Yeah, so what's your question?
Can you explain that?
Okay, so you have to build the link. You have a loop in the list. You have a list of recipes. You need to click in a recipe and load the details of that recipe that you clicked in a view details. To do that, I recommend that you create an ID for the recipes. This ID can be generated automatically behind the scenes, but I'm fine in case you ask the user to type the ID. I'm fine with that. No, I mean, in a real system, this would not be the case, but I'm fine for the assignment. If you ask the user to type an ID, that's fine. But use the ID, then the ID needs to be built into the URL when you click the recipe. So when you click the recipe, the ID goes into the view details. You load the corresponding recipe that has that ID matching, and you send to the view details to load the recipe, the specific recipe that you want to display, to click, that you just clicked. Yep. Any questions? Yep.
I'm gonna ask you something about that after.
Okay, that's fine. So let's do this. Let's take 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, we'll come back and we'll get things started, okay?